bags and wallets.
The story is set in 1962 at an airport in Paris where a man named Lucio Urtubia, who is wanted by the police, is about to carry out a plan. He is not alone, his girlfriend, Anne, is stationed outside, keeping an eye on the situation. Just as Lucio is about to act and spots the police and urgently urges him to escape. As the two fugitives attempt to flee, the police begin a pursuit. Thinking quickly, Lucio throws handfuls of US dollars into the air, creating chaos among the crowd. The story flashes back 20 years earlier to Spain. A young Lucio is seen being chased and shot at by an old man for stealing from him. Luckily, Lucio escapes. He lives with his older sister Sada and their father, who is gravely ill. Lacking money for medical care, Lucio desperately goes to a bank carrying a knife. However, his intention isn't to rob but to ask for a loan. The bank manager refuses since Lucio has no collateral. Frustrated, Lucio threatens him with the knife but ends up wetting himself out of fear and runs away. Upon returning home, Lucio finds out his father has passed away. After the funeral, Sada prepares to leave for France to find work. Lucio asks to go with her, but she refuses, suggesting he complete military service first. Ten years later, Lucio, now an adult, arrives in Paris and finds Sada.
Manta, botas, herramientas, pues no tienen cosa los militares.
He recounts his military service, during which he and others tried to smuggle supplies in protest of the Spanish government. Although the group was caught, Lucio managed to escape. Sada's partner, Patrick, eventually helps Lucio get a job at a construction site. There, Lucio meets Germinal, who introduces him to anarchist ideologies. One night, Lucio and others distribute flyers promoting a union meeting. Germinal explains anarchism, a belief in freedom, equality, and no government or religion. Suddenly, the police arrive, and the group narrowly escapes arrest. Later, Germinal introduces Lucio to Kiko, a fellow Spanish anarchist and bank robber. Kiko explains that after robbing a bank of 30,000 pesetas, the bank fraudulently claimed they lost 50,000 to collect more insurance. Outraged by this, Lucio agrees to join Kiko in robbing banks. During their first heist, Lucio is nervous and accidentally urinates himself again. Despite the hiccup, they manage to steal the money. The loot is split into three, for the anarchist movement, for families of jailed members, and for themselves. In their next robbery, police arrive after an alarm is triggered, but they escape once again. Inspector Costello is assigned to the case. He learns the robbers speak Spanish and seem motivated by humanitarian causes.
Somos responsables de extender entre vosotros.
At an anarchist meeting, police raid and arrest several attendees, including Lucio and Germinal. But Kiko escapes. At the police office, the arrested are asked to read from a script to test their fluency in French.
Mira, Urtubia, no tienes antecedentes.
Lucio's Spanish accent gives him away, prompting a search of his home. Yet, no evidence is found and is released. After his release, Lucio begins searching for information about Kiko's whereabouts by asking fellow anarchist members. However, no one seems to know where Kiko has gone. Meanwhile, the authorities intensify their monitoring of anarchist activities, putting the entire movement under constant surveillance. Eventually, Kiko reappears and proposes to Lucio that they resume robbing banks. But Lucio, who has grown weary of violence, declines. He tells Kiko that he now prefers to spread anarchist ideals through printed media. Although disappointed, Kiko respects Lucio's decision and they part ways.
No soy tan viejo, ni como un hermano mayor.
Sometime later, Lucio receives tragic news: Kiko has been killed by the police during one of his heists. The loss deeply affects Lucio, fueling his resolve to continue the fight in his own way.
Vamos, vamos.
Lucio continues to rebel and eventually purchases a printing press with Bro and a technician named Janine. But Germinal disapproves of Lucio acting independently. Meanwhile, and becomes active in gender equality causes. She and Lucio grow closer, eventually becoming partners.
Estos americanos están empeñados en acabar con Castro y con la revolución.
Frustrated by US actions against Cuba, Lucio plans to print counterfeit US dollars to destabilize the American economy.
Y falsificar pasaportes.
He recruits Patrick, a former currency printer, who agrees under the condition that Sada doesn't find out.
There'll be pennies from heaven for.
After months of trial and error, they succeed in producing indistinguishable fake notes. They test the currency at a money changer and succeed. The profits are distributed to the poor.
Maybe just for you and me, you hear it thunder. Don't run.
Lucio presents the fake dollars to a Cuban diplomat, who is impressed and introduces him to Che Guevara. After a tense wait at the Paris airport, Lucio finally meets Che Guevara. They discuss Lucio's plan to flood the US economy with counterfeit dollars to destabilize it. While Che admires Lucio's courage and ingenuity, he remains skeptical. He tells Lucio that fake currency alone will not be enough to bring down the American financial system. As the two fugitives attempt to flee, the police begin a pursuit. Thinking quickly, Lucio throws handfuls of US dollars into the air, creating chaos among the crowd. Shortly after, police arrest Lucio and Anne.
Mira, Lucio, este es Che.
Anne is released and brings Lucio a lawyer, Cherry, who believes Lucio might be granted conditional freedom due to his clean record. Anne also reveals she is pregnant.
No te preocupes, en una semana estás fuera.
After waiting for some time, Lucio is finally granted conditional release. He reunites with Anne and meets their child, forming a small but joyful family.
Comme les autres amis, nous n'irons plus jamais. Ce soir, c'est plus.
8 years later, determined to start fresh, he returns to work as a construction laborer. During this time, he learns about checks for the first time and becomes intrigued by their potential.
Hasta luego.
One day while shopping, Lucio realizes he is short on cash. The cashier points out that he can use the check he holds as payment. This sparks a new idea. Intrigued by the potential, Lucio researches checks and realizes they are easier and less risky to forge than banknotes. He shares his idea with Patrick, Bro, and Janine. They begin production and successfully creating thousands of checks. Lucio initially asks Anne to rejoin him in this endeavor. However, she declines, emphasizing that they now have a child. She urges Lucio to consider a quieter life.
Mira, estos son los últimos pasaportes que hago. Se acabó. Y tú también deberías parar, Lucio.
Lucio proceeds with the plan alone, donning a disguise and attempting to cash a forged check at a bank. Though staff grow suspicious, they ultimately approve the transaction.
Viajar a ciudades diferentes. Los cobros los vais a hacer en oficinas del Citibank a las 12 en punto del mediodía.
Buoyed by this success, Lucio organizes a large-scale effort, with members of the anarchist movement visiting banks across Paris to cash forged checks. After collecting millions in francs, Lucio announces the funds will again be split 3 ways, for the movement, for the families of the imprisoned, and for themselves.
Of buying real traveler's checks to copy the numbering.
The widespread fraud soon draws attention. National City Bank in New York detects the scheme and sends their head of security, Barrow, to Paris.
I understand your concern, Mr. Barrow, but you can't expect us to.
He teams up with Inspector Costello to hunt down those responsible.
Of course not. We're all on the same side, aren't we?
One day, Costello visits Lucio, accusing him of being the mastermind behind the forged checks. Lucio denies any involvement and claims he has turned over a new leaf. He leaves Costello without giving away any information. Lucio's every move came under constant surveillance by the police. One afternoon, while sitting together at home, Anne gently brought up the topic of a new opportunity. She told Lucio that she had received an offer to join a medical volunteer mission in Bolivia. It was a chance for a fresh start, a peaceful life far away from the shadows of their past. Lucio listened carefully but ultimately declined. He was still committed to his current mission and believed that he needed to see it through before considering a new life. While monitoring Lucio from a car as he worked on a construction site, Barrow expressed his doubts that Emile Labour could be responsible for such a sophisticated counterfeiting operation. Costello, however, remained convinced of Lucio's involvement, emphasizing how clever and elusive he was. After being trailed for days, Lucio met with his fellow anarchist comrades to discuss the increasingly risky situation. Banks throughout Paris had begun limiting transactions, only allowing 1 check per day and, in some cases, refusing to accept checks at all. With 30,000 forged checks worth $3 million still in hand, they were running out of time and options.
Pues ahora dinos dónde vas a encontrar un comprador para todo esto.
Later that day, Lucio returned home to find 3 airplane tickets to Bolivia placed neatly on the table. Anne had prepared everything, hoping Lucio would agree to leave before it was too late. She asked for a clear answer. Lucio reassured her, promising he would resolve everything soon. Lucio reached out to Charlie, a former prison acquaintance, and asked for help in finding a buyer for the remaining forged checks. Charlie introduced Lucio to Tony, a wealthy anarchist who was interested in purchasing the entire batch. Tony offered $1 million and Lucio agreed to the deal.
Pues tiene hasta el sábado, y antes de las 12.
Just before the exchange, Sada showed up at Lucio's home and urged him to stop before it was too late. Sada feared that Lucio's obsession would lead to disaster. But Lucio, confident that this would be his last operation, refused to back down. On the day of the exchange, Lucio was followed by the police. Midway through the drive, realizing he was being tailed, Lucio stopped abruptly, approached the police car, snatched the keys, and tossed them away before making a quick escape. He then met Bro at a tunnel, where Tony soon arrived. But before the deal could be finalized, the police raided the area and arrested everyone involved. While in prison, Cherry visited Lucio and explained the legal consequences he could face. If his appeal succeeded, he might serve 3 to 4 years. If it failed, he could be sentenced to 10 to 12 years in prison. Cherry also revealed that Bro and Janine had been arrested, while Patrick had managed to escape.
Y puedas venir a visitarnos. Juliet te echa de menos y sabes que yo siempre te querré.
He uncovered multiple discrepancies in the case files and persuaded a judge to postpone the trial.
Las televisiones. Te has convertido en una serie.
Barrow, under pressure from the bank, demanded swift action, but Costello urged caution.
Tú eres un hijo de puta.
Patrick no fue.
Suspicious of betrayal, Lucio confronted Patrick, but Sada defended him, explaining they were together in the countryside during the police operation. The true informant remained unknown. Lucio later received a threatening envelope containing a bullet. Shortly after, Cherry informed him that Tony was actually an undercover officer and that Charlie had traded Lucio's location in exchange for a reduced sentence.
Y al final aceptó 10,000 francos y un billete a Buenos Aires.
Lucio, now increasingly anxious, received a new court summons from Cherry. The pressure mounted as the second court date approached. One evening after receiving the second court summons, Lucio paid a visit to Costello. He showed him a bullet enclosed in an envelope, an anonymous threat that had arrived at his home. Costello, however, brushed it off, suggesting it could be from any number of enemies Lucio had made during his criminal activities. On the day of the hearing, rather than face judgment, Lucio made a bold move. He escaped from police custody just before entering the courtroom, sparking a citywide manhunt. Eventually, Lucio managed to elude capture and reunited with Bro and a few loyal anarchist allies. Knowing that they still had a large number of forged checks left, they decided to keep distributing them in secret. This time, Lucio moved into Patrick's house to keep a low profile. Meanwhile, banks began noticing new waves of fraudulent checks. The authorities intensified their efforts, but Lucio and his team operated with caution. Later, longing to hear Anne's voice, Lucio called her from a public phone. The conversation was brief but heartfelt. Unfortunately, the police had tapped the line. Moments later, they tracked Lucio's location and arrested him once again. During interrogation, Lucio was faced with severe consequences. Barrow pressured him, demanding the end of the operation. Calmly, Lucio made a daring proposition: he would surrender the original printing plates, effectively stopping the counterfeit operation if Barrow agreed to drop all charges and compensate him.
What?
Are you out of your mind? City man, no va.
Barrow was furious, incredulous at the audacity of the offer. But Lucio warned him, as long as the plates existed, more forged checks would surface, damaging the bank's reputation beyond repair. Begrudgingly, Barrow agreed. The next day, Lucio met with Barrow, handed over the plates, and in return received a suitcase filled with cash. With the deal done, Lucio walked away and rejoined Bro and Janine. The three shared a moment of quiet relief, knowing it was finally over. Leaving behind his life of crime, Lucio traveled to Bolivia, where he reunited with Anne and their child. There, he embraced a new life, one of peace, dedication, and service. He became a volunteer and worked to help local communities, determined to use his skills for good. Lucio Urtubia passed away in 2020. He remains a legendary figure among anarchists and radicals, a humble construction worker who dared to challenge the world's most powerful financial institutions with nothing more than ink, paper, and unwavering resolve.